Welcome to the Eyes on Jesus podcast with Drew and Tim. Here we are, Drew and Tim with you. We're so glad you're
Here
here
we are.
joining us. And we're in December, believe it or not. This year has flown by. And so we want to talk to you today about how to keep Christ in Christmas. Can you believe we're here,
Yes,
Drew?
man,
It's December.
it's unbelievable. Yeah, the year's flying by. I am incredibly not prepared, and it's great. It's great. It's a good feeling. Every
Ready or
year
not.
we're like, "Man, this year, here it is."
Yeah.
It just sneaks up on you, man. It's nuts.
And like me and my kids, we start counting down, I think, like 6 months to go and just like casually talking about it. And it seems like, all right, 6 months to go. And then all of a sudden it's like 2 months, it's here, like
Yeah,
Thanksgiving. Like once you start hitting
yeah.
the holidays after summer, it's just, there's no stopping it.
Right,
So,
and if I didn't have kids, like, I'm not
yeah,
sure that I would be aware that it's even happening, right? Like,
probably.
they
Yeah.
keep it in front of me very well.
Yeah. You
Like,
start
how
to
many
see
more
like
days?
decorations and stores have
Right,
stuff, but yeah, it's not top
right.
of mind like it is when you're a kid and it's so exciting. And that's why we want to have this episode is because as we
Yeah,
are eyes on Jesus, how do you keep your eyes on Jesus during a season that's about him, right? And can
right.
turn into so many other things. And so we want to talk through some things we do, some good tips that maybe we don't do but should do, and so we want to put them before you to kind of analyze this next few weeks or whenever you're listening to this going into the holiday season of what your priorities are going to be. Because just as it can get so busy leading up to the season, Christmas can be gone literally before you know it. And you're
Yeah.
here at January 1st being like, all right, here we go, another year. And so we want to take advantage of all the time we're given. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We want to make sure that we're living in the moment and enjoying the blessings we have that Christ has given us. And so this episode is not if you don't celebrate Christmas. This episode is not if you think it's a pagan holiday and you want to get in the comments and shame all the Christians who do celebrate it. This episode might not be for you. So you might want to tune us out
Might not
because
be,
this
right.
is if you celebrate Christmas. And obviously, people can celebrate differently. And the focus should be on Jesus. And sometimes we get that off. But, if you're going to misquote Jeremiah to us about Christmas trees, probably not the episode for you. So I'll just say that up
Yeah,
front.
but it's practical, right? Like, I mean, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, this is just there's gonna be helpful advice in here that you can take with you. Now, will the habit specifically or discipline specifically gauge towards Christmas? Yes, but,
Yeah.
basically what we're trying to get across here is in these moments where everything on your to-do list can be Santa Claus, right? Like, we gotta get pictures with Santa Claus. We gotta take the kids and go see Santa Claus. We gotta get gifts from us, and we gotta get gifts from Santa Claus. Like, when everything can be kind of about that, just like everything in life, we wanna keep our eyes on Jesus. So that's the goal. Hopefully, whether you celebrate it or not, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be something in here for you. You just gotta kinda,
Right.
have that perspective. So
Yeah,
that's a
it's
good
more the
thing.
critical spirit, like, if you're coming into this with a critical spirit, like, I'm just warning
Yep.
those people, right? Because you can't let other people in have their fun and enjoy it, right? And so if you
Right.
don't celebrate,
We
great,
should
like,
do
I'm not shaming you if you don't celebrate it, or if you're a Christian, you celebrate Hanukkah, great, awesome. Like, no
cool.
shame on you there, but also respect, people's convictions on what they wanna do for the holidays too, so
Totally.
and
We
and
should
from
do an episode on critical spirit.
yes.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, I've
Wouldn't
talked
that
about
be
this before. It's so great because the
Mhm.
critical spirit is not the same thing as discernment, and I love talking about discernment and discerning God's truth. And a critical spirit is not that. So yeah, we'll
That's not
keep that
part
in
of
the
it. Yep.
burner.
Sweet, sweet. So let's jump into it, Tim. What you got?
Yeah. So for me, I worked retail for 24 years. I've shared my story on that a little bit, and for me, the holidays was always the most stressful time of the year, which it is for many, but specifically working in retail, it is long hours. It is constantly peddling products on the shelves that
I'm
people
sure.
trying to grab that just run in stressed they don't have the new latest thing. Like I grew up with Tickle Me Elmos and all the crazy toys that were so popular for a season that people just went nuts over. Right? They
Oh, yeah.
even made a movie, Jingle All the Way, about parents going nuts over a
Yeah,
toy.
yeah.
And I was
That's
in the
right.
middle of it
Arnold
every year.
Schwarzenegger was in that,
Yes,
wasn't he?
he was. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
they
then
were,
they
like,
made a second one
fighting.
with
I remember
Larry
that.
the Cable Guy I didn't see, so I don't know if that one's good,
Yeah,
probably
I
not.
didn't see it.
But being in retail and the mindset, right, is just constantly about the next thing. So if you're in
Sure.
Valentine's Day, you're thinking of summer. If you're in summer, you're thinking of Halloween. If you're in Halloween, you're thinking of Thanksgiving. And as soon as Christmas comes around in retail, you're already thinking of the new year and eating healthy. And it's so funny because people eat healthy like for the first few weeks and then it's Super Bowl and all the junk food comes back out. And so you're just constantly bound in these cycles. And for me, working in those cycles, having young kids, it was really hard to enjoy the moments. It was really hard to get my mindset on okay, I'm not thinking about work now. I'm thinking about my kids and them just seeing Christmas lights and being enthralled by whatever,
Yeah.
sights and sounds and smells they're seeing. And I love Christmas. Like I grew up in a family that celebrated it with my mom whose love language was giving gifts, right? It was something that we enjoyed, that we celebrated, that we had a Christian's perspective on. But for so many years being stuck in retail, I got stuck in the fact that I can't really mentally enjoy it. And so being that I'm out of it for 3 years now, I really try to enjoy the time I have with my kids, the time that we have that goes by fast, and really to keep Christ the center of it, because when you're in retail in the mindset of working 12-hour days, dealing with crazy people that kind of make you question the good of humanity, I mean, it can be really draining. And so, if you're in that mindset now, and if you're in a crazy job during the holidays, I feel you. I know it's tough. And so, a lot of the
Yeah.
things we're going to talk about, we're going to have 10 practical tips that you may want to do or may not be able to do. But just listen to them and see if it's something that possibly you could incorporate, or maybe you're doing a version of it already. And if there's other options that you do with your family, we'd love to hear them too. So, the first one we have for you is read the Bible story with your family. This is simple. It's the best way to remember what our season is all about and specific portions of the Christmas story. I think that you can't just rely on the fact that your pastor is going to talk about them. You can't just rely on the fact that, oh, we're in Advent season and your kids may or may not talk about it in their kids' classrooms, or they may not even be, engaged if they sit in with the sermon.
Right.
But as parents, it's your job to read that story with your family, because that ultimately is what it's all about. And even if you've read the story every year, you can still read it again because it's still powerful.
Right. And now, if you're a parent and you're like, this isn't usually me, right? Like, I don't read the Bible to my kids. Like, and listen, I'm not like judging you, and I'm not saying like you absolutely should. I mean, you should, but like, I get it. We're all at different places. We're all at different stages. And not everybody's like just breaking out the Bible and has that kind of, confidence in themselves. But there are now so many resources through the Bible app. There is a kids Bible app now,
Yeah.
and you can literally go to these apps and have it do it for you. You just have to tell it what you're wanting it to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you. Like we've got to be clear in our communication in our household of what the season is ultimately about. At the same time, you've got to figure out what's the best way for you to communicate that, right? Does that need to come from dad? Does that need to come from mom? Does that need to come from a third party, but we're gonna watch it together or listen to it together? There's a lot of options out there, but the main focus, there needs to be a time, like you said, Tim, there needs to be a time leading up to Christmas where we go, "Hey, let's remember
Yeah.
what this is really about."
Yeah, and if it's just you and your spouse, read the stories as well. Read them to each other. There's
Yep.
awesome Bible plans about Christmas, a 14-day, 28-day one, whatever you want to go through, that kind of walk you
Mhm.
through that. If you don't know where to start or what verses to read, go to the YouVersion Bible app. I guarantee you there's hundreds, if not dozens, of Christmas
Yes.
Bible
Yeah.
plans. Yeah. And so just grab that. It's a quick, read in the morning to keep your mind fixed on that. And with that, the second one we have for you is walk through Old Testament prophecies about the birth of Christ. And this really helps solidify, I think, some of the nonsense that you hear online, or people that don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, when you actually put it to practice of reading. What often people look past is the so many prophecies that are fulfilled through Jesus. And this is a powerful way to build your faith in Christ, because, realizing that Old Testament was written hundreds, sometimes thousands of years before the New Testament, and Jesus fulfilled so many that he couldn't have if he was just a man trying to have a
Right.
Messiah complex, right? And so there's a lot of good
Totally.
books to study with that. The Case for Christ is a great one. It's not a Christmas book, but it's a great one to kind of show the probability of Jesus fulfilling all these things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's just one. Like, it's not like somebody showed up and was like, "Hey, the Messiah's coming," and then Jesus came and was like, "Told you." Wouldn't that be something? No, we're talking about hundreds of times people said something, used imagery, spoke specifically, spoke generally, spoke to the time, spoke to the culture. Like, there's all these different examples. And then when Jesus came, instead of being like, yeah, I'm told you, I'm the guy. He showed up and said, I'm here to fulfill all that.
Yeah.
and things that he would not have been able to know about, and spoke to things that he would not have been able to know about unless he was aware of it. Yeah, so it's wild to me that people are still on this belief of like, no, Jesus was just another guy. He was just a regular dude. And if you believe that, that's cool. Dig him up.
Yeah.
Like just dig him up. Show me his body. And if you can do that, like we're set. You show me Jesus and like dead. You show me him dead. And I'll just be like, well, now I got a lot to think about.
Yeah, just like Easter revolves around, the resurrection. Without the resurrection, we wouldn't have Christianity, and during Christmas, right? Without the birth of Christ, we wouldn't have a
We wouldn't have
Messiah
anything. What are
either.
we celebrating? Yeah, what are we
Right.
doing?
It's crucial to recognize the fact he was a real man that came to earth, that was incarnate, and still is a man. And, there's so many people that even deny the fact that Jesus existed, which is crazy for me, because it's one thing to not claim he's the Messiah or rose from the dead, but just to claim Jesus never existed when there's so many extra biblical sources that prove that as well. People are just in denial. And so that's why we need to remind ourselves of the truth of the Bible. And it was cool. I listened to, and I can't speak to it exactly, but I listened to the Remnant Radio podcast, and they had a guy on who talked about Dead Sea Scrolls. And there's like patriarchal books written from Jacob's sons, the 12 of them. And a lot of the data in those books, which are obviously extra biblical, not inspired word of God,
Sure,
but part of the
sure.
Jewish history, a lot of the Jewish history revolved around them expecting a Messiah that would come and be sinless and die. And a lot of other prophecies that aren't even in the main ones in the Bible, which are true, all we need. But at the same time, the Jewish people were expecting this Messiah around the
Mhm,
time he came,
mhm.
because from
Right,
Daniel's prophecies, if you factor those out, it was about 4 BC or so when they expected the Messiah to be born, which is why the wise men, sought him, which is why
right,
Anna and Simeon were waiting in the temple for the Messiah. I love their stories because they're just faithful, right? God's silent
right,
years,
right,
400 silent years, which God was not actually silent. He was not just taking a nap. But that's not when we have
right,
inspired scripture during those 400 years. But the Jewish
right,
people for 400 years were waiting for the Messiah. Like they knew he was coming, they knew the prophecies, and they were waiting. I mean, think of 400 years. That would be, the 1600s for us, for nothing to happen right in the realm of God speaking, knowing a Messiah is going to be coming from 1600, it was told. And now here we are, be like,
yep,
okay, any day now, right? And
any
so there was
day,
this
any day,
anticipation, right? And so when you put in perspective of people that were actually waiting for years and hundreds of years
right,
for the Messiah to come, we just read it in like one fell swoop and be like, oh yeah, years, dozens of years, hundreds of years. But actually living that out, I often think about is, what
right,
was that like for people what was it like for Anna, who was in her 80s, and she spent her entire life being in the temple daily
mm,
waiting, right? What was that like for just a normal Tuesday waiting for Jesus to come, and
right,
finally God blesses her with the fact she's able to see him before she dies.
right. Meanwhile, we'll pray and not have an answer to our prayer like Amazon in a day or 2, and we're
Right.
frustrated at
We'll give
God
up.
for his timing, right? And we'll give up, we'll stop praying. I thought it was interesting what you said about just like biblical and historical evidence. I saw this guy, he was at a school and he was teaching about the Bible, and somebody stood up and said, like, how do you know this is true? Like, I get it. It's an emotional connection, it's a relationship, but logically, how do you know? And he said, if you were to stack up like paper to paper, laying down, if you were to stack up all the evidence that Jesus not only existed, but like was who he says he is, then you could stack papers as high as the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
If you then wanted to do that for anybody else, Muhammad, like anybody, if you wanted to do that for anybody else who was on the same kind of, if you want to say playing field, right? You wouldn't get 4 feet high. And I was
Yep.
just like, okay. I was
Yeah.
like, it's a good perspective. So yeah, I mean, what I have found is that people who either deny Jesus, don't believe in Jesus, or say Jesus was somebody else,
Yeah.
rarely have they done any digging on their own. Rarely have they actually given the other side an opportunity to speak or explain. And it's just something they've decided in their heart and in their mind that they're going to go with just to shut everybody and keep everybody out. Yep.
All right. Next one is use an advent calendar with scripture in it. So this is
Yeah.
not just buying an advent calendar of Taylor Swift or something from Target, but it's actually
Right. With the
using an
little
advent
chocolates.
calendar.
I want the
Yeah, the little chocolates. The chocolates are fine. You can keep
yeah.
those, but do
I
something,
used to
with
okay, did you have one of these as a kid with the little
no.
chocolates? Did y'all ever do
We used
that?
them for my kids,
My
but
my mom used to always have an advent calendar. We'd start at December 1st, you had 25 days, and every day you had, like, a little chocolate, and I
yeah.
used to go in on, like, the 3rd day of December and just wipe that whole thing. I used to just crush, like, 25 pieces of chocolate, and then I'd be like, "Yeah, no,
I'm
I
out.
put
Can I
keep
get a refill?
we need refill, right?" Yeah, exactly, exactly, but a advent calendar is a great idea. One of the things that my parents did, and now Brent and I, do from time to time is we will anonymously start doing an advent calendar and in kind of a manger scene setup, and we'll take it anonymously and put it on people's doorsteps.
Hmm,
And so we pray and pick a family each year, usually one with like younger kids.
yeah,
And like one evening, we'll just drive over and we'll put like the angel on their doorstep at the beginning of December. And it's got like a little note with it that talks about like the star in the sky and what the heavens were preparing for. And then like the next week rolls around and you'll just like open your door and boom, we've put like three wise men there and it'll talk about how they traveled and what that looked like. We'll put shepherds there, all this stuff. And we tell the story. And then leading up to the week of Christmas, that's when we put baby Jesus in the manger and all that. So it's like this kind of feel. So same kind of Advent thing, but using like something like a manger just for families with kids. But I think any of those kind of habits are really good to have in
yeah.
place.
That's cool. I like that. Incorporating neighbors into it. Yeah, my wife did this with
Yeah,
the advent calendar of just not just candy in it, but little pieces that are representative of parts of the story, and I'm sure you can find that online and stuff, but it was always very intricate and took a lot of time, and as our kids got older,
sure.
she's like, "I don't have time for this anymore." Plus, move on to other stuff, which is totally cool, but
Sure.
when they're young, instilling that is very important, I think so. The
Yeah.
next one is watching a Christ-focused movie, so, this is a cool option. I think some of us do this anyway, but also being intentional, I think, with what you're watching. And honestly, like, I don't know, I feel like I used to watch more Christmas movies when I was younger. We have a really hard time getting through just like the Christmas Carol, and there's so many classic ones that I want to watch and during Christmas that oftentimes I don't.
Hmm.
But Elf, Grinch are always in there, as part of the rotation. And we usually pick
Always.
one of the maybe one or two of the Christmas stories out of the five I think that I like and watch. And then, Nativity Story is really good. Jesus focused movie that came out. I don't know when that came out, but it's a newer movie at least. And I mean, even things like Charlie Brown Christmas have it's crazy that talks about Jesus in it,
Yeah.
where cartoon like
They
that
wouldn't
never
allow that
flies today.
anymore.
Right.
Nope.
What do you guys watch during Christmas?
Yeah, Elf is on the list. The Grinch with Jim Carrey is my favorite, but
Yeah.
kids are still not quite old enough. They get a little scared
He's
of
scary, yeah.
Grinch when he yells at Max. By the way, rumor that in 2025 there's going to be a Grinch 2
I
with
heard
Jim
that rumor.
Carrey. Yeah, interesting.
They've never done
Um
a sequel before, have they?
I
What is
don't
he
think
doing
so, and I'm
today?
not really sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure like what the sequel would even be, but I'm if it's got Jim Carrey in it, I will likely go see it. Yeah, I don't know that we have like set movies we watch. I'm not to be like a party pooper here, but I've there's a lot of Christmas movies that I've never seen. And I'm
That's
like,
cool.
I don't know that I'm really proud of it, but I've never done it. Like, like Miracle on 34th Street or whatever. Like, I've
Mhm,
never ever seen that. The original, like all the original, like Rudolphs and the original Snowman, Frosty
mhm.
the Snowman, all this stuff. Like, I never watched them, never got into them, still haven't. But my wife loves those kinds of things. So she usually makes sure like the kids see all that good stuff. But yeah, honestly, we haven't done the Jesus focused, Christ focused movie. And, it's something like you said, when it comes to these lists, like we're not knocking it out of the park and doing 10 out of 10 here, but
Yeah.
definitely something to consider going into this season with a 5-year old that I'm sure she'd enjoy.
Yeah, there's the Star movie came out too, it's a cartoon. The animals that went to I don't know if they went or
Oh,
they
I
were
haven't
part
seen
of the
this.
story. Yeah, the stars, that might be good for younger kids.
Cool.
And older kids, Nativity Story, definitely recommend that. But even like Christmas Carol, has good principles in it, right? This guy that's
Yep.
not generous that finds out he should be, and So anyway, just analyze what you're watching, and like we always should, but
Yeah.
especially during Christmas. So this one, this one I added it's love, and by love I mean really love the family
Love.
members you don't like. So
Mhm.
don't just so this is
Yes.
a time, right, when you may see people you don't see all year long, or you see them specifically for an event or whatever. And it can
Right.
be a big stress for people. It can be the biggest stress of the season sometimes for being around family members that you really don't like, and you just kind of grin and bear it. But I would encourage everyone to see the image of God in the people that you call family or friends, to see who God sees them as, and to be the light for them, right? Many of our family
Yeah.
members we have conflict with because they aren't Christian. So, what a great time that we have during the holidays to show them the love of Christ instead of just getting into our arguments about politics or theology. Or what if you truly just cared
Yeah.
about them? What if you truly asked? What if you truly showed Christ's love, even though mentally you're just like, I can't stand this person. I wish they weren't my family. If you think that, you have to overcome it because that's not what God calls us to be. If we're called to love the neighbors on the street, we're definitely called to love the family He's given us for better or worse.
Right. Yeah, when you step into your family's environment, are they rubbing off on you or are you rubbing off on them?
Mm.
And the goal would be that when you walk into the room, something changes, something shifts. And that can be through your kindness, that can be through your curiosity, that can be through your investment in their life. It can be through a lot of things, but if you walk into a room, regardless of who's in that room, and show love and show, you know, show essentially Jesus, then that's gonna be your best bet for your family to go, "Yeah, you know what? Like, we this is gonna be a good Christmas. This is gonna be a good time, good gathering." And it's not easy, like, it's certainly not easy, but yeah, it's a good mindset to have walking in for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to just get in the mindset that, hey, this is for 3 hours and got to make the best of it. Right.
Let's
Just got to
push
mentally
through,
prepare.
man.
Yeah. Push through.
Power through.
Doesn't mean that you're gonna be best friends with these people and hang out the next week, but for the time that you're together and during Christmas, don't act a fool. And even if they do,
Yeah,
you don't have to respond in kind. And I think that's often what
right,
we fear is that, oh, well, if they bring up this, then it's gonna be crazy. And it's, well, what if you just don't engage?
right.
What if you don't
Yeah, just walk away.
engage in the fight that they're looking for? Just be nice, be kind, try that. It's easier
Yep.
said than done, I know, but all right. Next one is to listen to Christ exalting Christmas music. So a lot of times
Mm.
we have Christmas music on, and there's some great Christmas music that's not Christ exalting. And I love
Christ
many songs
exalting
that,
Christmas music.
right,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like Mariah Carey and all that kind of stuff comes on, and you just like, or, I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus or whatever.
Yep.
Like, it's
Mhm.
just part of our tradition. These are songs that come on the radio. But what if you specifically listen to certain songs that glorified Christ? And, Handel's Messiah is a good option. There's some other ones that talk about the Christmas story, and I think is good to maybe intentionally listen to. Or if you're decorating around the house, maybe intentionally have
Yeah,
certain music on that is Christ exalting. Because if you just listen to the Christmas station on the radio or a random one, it's going to be a mix of all kinds of stuff. And I do that. I mean,
sure
I
is.
have just, I have random Christmas songs on for sure. But maybe there's an intentionality in it where certain times when maybe you're talking about the Advent calendar, maybe you are opening presents on Christmas Day, maybe that's when maybe you create your own playlist of just certain
Yeah,
songs that talk about Jesus. I'm sure there's lists online of Christ exalting Christmas music that you can find. And I know
yep.
when we hear them, we know the difference between, oh, that was really powerful because of the message behind it versus, oh, that just gave me the Christmas goosebumps, or just I've heard this for
Totally,
years and now I know what it is.
totally, and I wonder what it was like for you working in retail, and as soon as Halloween is over, it's like, "I don't want a lot for Christmas," and all of a sudden, Mariah Carey is just, like, in your life
Yeah,
forever. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not a fan. So, yeah, you can easily find playlists on Spotify. There's churches that put out, worship teams that put out albums that are pretty decent. It's Christmas music isn't easy. Chris Tomlin's remade like every song ever. So
mhm,
you could always go that route. But yeah, that's important. I'm not saying that like, hey, this other music, like it's not good to listen to. Like we get it. Like,
yeah,
that's part of our culture. That's part of being in America. It is what it is. But, Justin Bieber and Mariah Carey shouldn't be the only thing you listen to, and Michael Bublé. I do play some Michael Bublé,
Yeah.
that's for sure
Yeah.
around Christmas, but, yeah, definitely still gotta have some worship music in the house.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too when a secular artist sings a song like "Oh Holy Night" or something like that, and you're like, man, that's some deep lyrics. Do you realize what you're singing, or are you just trying to get a paycheck for
Mhm.
a Christmas album to have
Yeah,
on
well,
your
I
list?
mean,
But
these days, there's a lot of Christian artists that are, getting a paycheck and not necessarily pointing you to Christ, but
yeah.
that's a whole 'nother thing.
All right, how to keep Christ the center of Christmas. Number 7 is remember the dangers of materialism. So don't let yourself get sucked into materialistic trap that exists during Christmas. If you're a parent, it's especially important to make sure you engage with your kids at a young age to help them understand that the focus is not about just having more possessions. And this goes back to how I started it, is to be in the consumeristic mindset for so many years, is to see that, oh, that's really what this is all about, is just finding deals. Man, Black Friday is another thing that, I had to deal with, just insanity. And thankfully that kind of died over the
Oh,
last
yeah.
few years I worked there. But at least in the, man, 2000s, 2010s, it was just a huge event that people would go nuts over, right? We've seen the videos online of people just fighting over TVs. And I've been a part of those mobs, not quite as bad as Walmart, but still with that mindset of, this is what it's all about. And that's even what the Grinch says, this is what it's all about. That's not about Christmas. So I would just say, materialistic focus will happen because it's just a part of the holiday. If you're celebrating Christmas and your kids are asking for presents and you give presents, I mean, that in and of itself means that it's kind of happening. Now, the
Yep.
focus of what you talk about on Christmas, of helping your kids understand that why we do this, why we give presents. If you do Santa or not, you have to incorporate Jesus into the mix. And
Yeah.
how you do that's going to be up to you. But when we talk about the reason for the season being Jesus, if you
Right.
give your kids 40 presents and don't talk about Jesus, then what are they supposed to think, right? What are they supposed to think when they just like,
Totally.
whoa, this is a cool holiday. Now I just have all this stuff and I'm going to ignore
Right.
half of it tomorrow, right? Or it's going to break.
Yeah, it happens quick. It happens really quick how quickly your kid will get off of the thing that they got. I mean, it happens for us how quickly
Yeah,
we'll get off of
it
something.
does.
For me, what I try to do is make sure they understand how we're in a position to do this before we even do anything. So before we open presents at my house, before we open presents at the in laws, before we open presents at my parents, before any of that, we have the exact same discussion. And that is, hey, I want you to remember that you are a very blessed kid.
Yeah.
And it's because of mommy and daddy, or if we're going to mama and papa's, it's because of mama and papa. It's because of their hard work and the blessings that they've received from God that they are in a position, or we are in a position to celebrate in this way. So I want you to understand that regardless of what you get, whether it's the makeup set that my daughter wants this year, the balance beam that my daughter wants this year, yes, that's a real request. Unless it's, my son doesn't want anything. He's just like, give me chocolate milk. I'm solid. I'm good. I don't care. But regardless of what you receive, you need to know, like, as soon as that is slid your way and it's, hey, Rylan, this is for you. Hey, Levi, this is for you. You need to know that it's because of the person's generosity and the blessing from God that you're in a position to receive. And so we try to get that right out of the gate. It's also a really good opportunity, especially if you have young kids or some of y'all for some older kids. It's really a
Mhm.
great opportunity to have them learn about gratitude and how to just be grateful in the moment, how to have some grown up conversations. So we have a very big time rule that as soon as you get something, you're not just excited to get it, you're finding out who gave you that, who is it from, and before, during, after you open it, you are thanking them, looking them in the eye and saying thank you, like
Yeah.
genuinely looking at them, no matter their age. And you are standing up and walking away from whatever was given, and you are giving them hugs and you are
Yeah.
reminding them, thank you, like you're thank you for this. And so, for a 3-year old, they don't get it, but they're still going to get up and they're still going to act through it because the
Yeah.
number one thing that we can teach in that moment is gratitude. And so my goal as a parent is if I can beforehand remind them that we should be grateful to God, and then during I can remind them we should be grateful to who the blessing is coming through. And I think as an adult, that's easier to understand in real time in your life that there is
Yeah.
a blessing from God to a source that's then coming to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really good. I like that. I have a funny story. I don't know if I shared it before, but since this is a Christmas episode, when I was young, like really young, I think I was 4 or
Okay.
5, I really wanted a violin. And so, like a real violin, I don't know why I
Okay.
wanted it, but I really wanted it. And so my parents got me this cheap toy violin that squeaked and was just complete garbage. But the present said it was from Jesus. And so that's it kind of soured my whole, it's like, what? Jesus gives these junky gifts, like why couldn't Jesus afford a real violin, right? So
Oh,
so that was
no.
kind of like the joke for a long time is like, hey, I could have been a violinist, but
Right.
so I think I
But
I
Jesus
played
gave me this
piano later in
crappy
life, but
violin.
yeah. So you might want to be careful what if you do label your presents as being from
If
just
it's
like, hey,
from
this is
Jesus, it's gotta be a banger. It's
gotta be
gotta
good.
be like the new bike is from
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, it's
Yeah.
gotta be that. It's gotta be that 100%.
A
Like,
word of caution for parents out there.
oh, that's awesome. That's
All right, number 8, give Christ-centered gifts. So this is focusing on, giving like a Bible to someone, giving maybe a Christmas card with the Bible verse on it. If you do Christmas pictures, maybe having your Christmas card have a Bible verse on it, or sometimes, we tell a little bit of our story of the year, like a paragraph or two of what God did in our life, which goes to everybody, that we send it to, and they get to hear a little bit about what God's doing. People can always use another Bible or a commentary,
Yep,
even if they don't ask for it.
yep.
So I don't, faith-based gifts, go to Hobby Lobby. I'm sure there's plenty, that you
There's
could
plenty of
grab.
things at Hobby Lobby that say hope and grace and
Yeah,
love and peace and joy.
exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
plenty.
Yeah.
I like the Christ-centered gifts. I think that's important. Also, you can this is something that we'll do sometimes. If we have a non-Christian friend, ask what us or our kids want for Christmas, we will give them a Christian gift.
Hmm. That's good.
So we have a couple in our family that is just, I think deep down they believe that God is real. I think they have a tough time with church. I think they have a tough time with Jesus. I think they have a tough time with Christians and people in general. But they asked me last year, "Hey, what does Rylan want for Christmas?" And I was like, "Oh, she would love a kid's picture Bible. She would love that. She would just love it." And they were like, "Well, where do we get that?" I was like, "I don't know. You'll have to dig a little bit, but man, that would be awesome. Thank you guys so much." And that was it. And sure
Yeah.
enough, they got her a picture Bible. But what was awesome is after she got it and opened it up, she then like knew that they gave the gift and went and looked through it with them. And
Nice.
I'm like, see, that's it. That's
Yeah.
what you want. So yeah, Christian gifts are great. And if somebody who's not Christian asks you what you want, throw out something that gets them looking in the right places.
Yeah, and realize that, your kids, especially if they're young, probably more than likely won't ask for gifts like, something like a
Right.
Bible, for example. And so that's where you
Right.
just, you sprinkle that in. It's not that you can't get them whatever toy they want, but, get them a Bible. Right when our kids were born, we gave them a Bible with their name engraved on it and stuff, and a good kind of starter Bible. But my daughter just got a Bible last year that has like sheets like every I don't know how many pages, but just like throughout the Bible mixed in sheets that you can actually color. Like they're not just like children's coloring pictures, they're like really
Right.
fancy
Oh,
ones that you
that's
can
cool.
color that have to do with the story you heard more for like, her age. She's 9. So yeah, there's some cool options out there and
Yep.
just see what comes to mind. All right, number 9, make the highlight of your Christmas serving others. So
Yep.
this is great because some families will go to, like a soup kitchen or they'll give gifts through Operation Christmas Child and fill a box for
Mhm.
someone. That's what our church does. Many churches do that or something similar. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to go with your kids and say, "Hey, we're filling this box for someone and this is what we need to buy." And you give them the
Yeah.
option to pick stuff out and then you fill the box, or maybe a local family that can't afford a Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner. And so you can pull resources together to get them stuff. Most churches will do something to this effect. And so
Operation
partner,
Christmas Child,
yeah,
Samaritan's Purse, all that. Yep.
partner with your church, figure out what they're doing and how you can be a part of it, and then get the whole family involved, right? Don't just write a $50 check for a family, like
Right.
actually get your
Right.
kids involved in
Yep.
being a part of the process. Or, I mean, just pick a day and volunteer. Some people do it on Thanksgiving Day, to volunteer to soup kitchen or homeless shelter. I think these are just good ways to be involved and to really help going back to the generosity and understanding blessings, right? It helps us
Yep.
understand our blessings when we see maybe someone that doesn't have what we have, or someone that needs our love, or someone that can use God blesses us to be a blessing. And so
Yeah.
it helps your kids see that at a young age. And it helps even us as adults keep things in perspective, right? I mean, we know
Yeah.
if we go on mission trips or if we do whatever, we get to see like, oh man, it's not just about me and my needs in comfortable America, right? Because there's people in America and abroad that don't have the comforts that I'm
Correct.
used to.
I love that. Can I share number 10?
Yeah, go for it.
This is my favorite one. I love this one. It's profound and it's something that I think it's gonna blow people away. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Number 10, share Jesus with someone.
What? What does it mean?
What? So that means, believe it or not, that would mean that you have an opportunity at Christmas. The first 9 we talked about, these are things that you can do. These are things that your family can do. These are things that you can put in motion. If you are a Christian, there is not a better time than the holidays to share the story of Christ. There is
Sure.
not a better time. And if you are a Christian and you're listening to this podcast, let me just challenge you to shift your perspective, shift your plans from now until the end of the year when you're going, I've got Thanksgiving, I've got Christmas, I've got stuff I got to buy, I got stuff I got to do, I got stuff I got to make, I got stuff I got to bake, I got all these appointments, I got Christmas parties, I got holiday parties, I got church, I got that. When you're thinking through all the things, your number one priority should be sharing Christ with others. And I'm just telling you, there is not a better time. What an opportunity when you're around your family. What an opportunity when you're around your friends. What an opportunity when you're around your coworkers. What an opportunity when new people are coming to church because you have, 14 Christmas Eve services. What better opportunity to tell someone about Christ than when they are greatly aware that there is something bigger than themselves going on.
Yeah.
And they know that as exciting as Santa is, there's something else happening.
Yeah.
And you have the opportunity to step in and fill that gap and go, hey, listen, let me, have I ever shared my faith with you? Have I ever told you my story? Can I just, can I tell you? What better opportunity? And,
Yeah.
and you get to the end of your story and you go, I just wanted to, it's Christmas. I just wanted you to know this is what Jesus did for me and he can do the same for you. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with you. I love you. And I hope you have a great Christmas. Like, oh my God, like how awesome. And the amount of people that will stop and listen to a story like that in this season, it's countless. And you get to be that person. So I guarantee you this, out of all the gifts you get for Christmas and out of all the gifts that you give, if you share Christ with somebody before the end of the year, if you share Christ with somebody and I'm not even saying they accept Jesus, they just listen to you,
Yeah.
I guarantee you that will be the most special and meaningful Christmas memory you have this year. Guaranteed.
Absolutely. I mean, if you invite someone in to your home as well for Christmas dinner, right, that doesn't have dinner, if you show the love
Yeah,
of Christ, you will get filled up, right? It's not just filling up their bellies,
absolutely.
like you'll get filled up by doing things for others. We experience Christ's love through that. And so it's just a joyous occasion when we can do that. And the easiest way to do this whole thing is just invite people to your Christmas Eve service.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Get a flyer from your church. Just say,
Yep.
"Hey, what are you doing for Christmas? I would love it if you came to our Christmas Eve production. And here's the times. When can I expect you?" Like
Yeah.
just non-pushy, because people are more open during Easter and Christmas to come to church than ever. And
Absolutely.
so if they don't have a church, or if, oh yeah, Christmas, like I used to go with my parents to Christmas Eve service, like maybe I'll
Yep.
give it a shot, right? Maybe it's
We
just
used to
part
hold
of.
candles and sing Silent Night, and then you'll be
Mhm.
like, "We still do that."
Still do that. You can get the wax on your hand and everything. So, so I think
25 years later, we still do it.
I still do that. Some might have the digital candles now. We talked about doing that. It's not as cool though as the wax digital
Yeah,
candles,
and
but
yeah.
it's not as cool
I
as
mean,
lighting
we
it.
are we at the point where we've done this too long?
I remember back when we used wax,
I know we're shifting gears, but I'm just curious. Have we done this too long? Have
probably.
is there anything else we've done in a church? Obviously talking about Jesus. Okay, let's get that out of the way. All right.
Yeah.
I'm saying, is there anything actionably that we have done more consistently than holding candles and singing Silent Night for, I don't know, 65 years of ministry? Is there anything like I've
We're gonna
never
be
seen
the
something like
yeah.
this.
In 30 years, we're gonna be the curmudgeon pastors like, "I remember in my day, we had wax, and we didn't have virtual reality church back in my day. We showed."
Now we
And
give
we just
everyone iPads and they hold up a candle app, you know? It's
yeah.
like, what?
The kids be like, "Get whatever. This is cool. This is hip."
Oh, Lord. I'm sorry. I know it's a weird end to the podcast, but, like, I just we've been doing it so long, and everyone takes pictures. Every Christmas Eve, every Christian's Facebook post is like, "Look at all the candles we had at
Yeah.
our Christmas Eve service. Oh, it was amazing." I'm like, "Yep, I can picture it because 'cause I've done it for 50 years." "Let's
50
switch it
side.
up, church. Let's switch it up. Let's figure something else out,
Don't even
okay?"
act like you're 50.
And Silent Night, I mean, not that it's not a great song, but slightly, unless it's Boys to Men, slightly overrated in the concept that this was a silent night, holy night, quiet night, still night. Like, dude, it's the story of
Maybe we'll go
Jesus in the
maybe
manger,
we mix it up.
chaos. Let's mix it up. Let's just
Let's
mix
mix
it
it up.
up.
Yeah.
Let's mix it up.
We'll take
Yep.
pictures of everyone in there. I don't even know. Okay, we need to end because 'cause we're just
We got to. We're now down the rabbit trail. We're
down
down
the
it.
rabbit
My
trail.
bad. My
All
bad.
right. Well, thanks for joining us. How do you keep Christ in Christmas? Do you do one of
Yeah.
the 10, all of the 10, none of the 10? Do you have another option or something that we didn't consider? We'd love to hear from
Yeah,
you.
I would love to hear, like, from our listeners, I'd love to hear what they do with their families. I mean, let's help each other out, and I'll tell you this, if we get some good suggestions, like, we'll share it, we'll let our listeners know,
Yeah.
and email us at eyesonjesuspodcast@outlook.com. That's a great way to get in touch with us. You can also connect with us on all of our social media accounts.
Yep. And we do have an Eyes on Jesus YouTube account now, separate from my account. So you can watch our videos on there as well. And until next time, go with God, grow in discernment.